my last episode of the Splatoon 1 special design, we covered some of the simpler specials, like the Bomb Rushes, Echolocator, Ink Strike, and Killer Whale. But those aren't the specials Splatoon 1 is most remembered for. It's the absolutely, quote, broken ones, the Inkzooka, Kraken, and Bubbler. But are these specials just as broken as everyone says they are, or are they a little bit more balanced than you might expect? Today, we're going to be wrapping up the Splatoon 1 special design series, going over these three specials and giving my overall rating of Splatoon 1 special design, which we can compare with Splatoon 2. So, you can subscribe if you want to see more, and let's get right into the video. First up is a super long-range Inkzooka, matching E-liter range and shooting a giant tornado that kills in one shot. With the any special duration up, you get 5 blasts, and they are extremely powerful. One thing to note about them is they're actually a little bit janky because it shoots this giant, tall tornado. This tornado shot can get partially cut off by specific objects, making it smaller at the top, but it will still descend and travel forward, meaning it could be a little bit harder to see or react to, and sometimes a bit difficult to tell if it's actually supposed to be destroyed or not. Additionally, while I said it matches E-liter range, it actually can surpass it if it's put on the right high ground. Shooting from high ground actually gives you a little bit more range as the shot falls down slowly. However, this can even be taken to extreme. While super situational, you can use a super jump and shoot at the very top of it to get unparalleled distance, and it's basically unreactable from the opponent's point of view. So yeah, Zooka's strengths are pretty ridiculous, but it does have some fair weaknesses. For one, it actually takes almost a full second to be able to shoot the weapon, so it's not a panic button, and that's great considering it has E-liter range. And secondly, Zooka's a pretty slow main weapon, so if someone's close enough and you don't hit your first shot, you're probably gonna get picked off. Is Zooka as OP as people think it is? Yeah, it's still pretty up there. I mean, even Nintendo had to make it 220p, the highest points for special in Splatoon 1, and most of the good Zooka weapons had heavy depletion, but it's not really that one-sided. I think its strengths are just way too good. The weapon is actually pretty fair in close range, it's just a bit too overpowered at long distances. I don't even need to talk about how a toned-down Inkzooka would look because, well, the Splatoon 3 Tri-Zooka with a bit less range, the Tri-Shot, and only 3 shots basically fits that. So yeah, Zooka's not too bad design-wise, just a little bit strong. Alright though, enough about Zooka. I know you guys want me to speak about Kraken. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, not gonna hide it, Kraken has two things about it that are absolutely inexcusable. Instant activation and full-on invincibility. This special was designed to be a panic button, and that is really stupid. But let's take a look at everything else about the special first. The special really isn't too complicated other than that. You can't really hide because you're a giant squid, but you can also climb walls and surfaces even if they're uninked or inked by the opposite team. In particular, this is really useful for climbing walls, so in some situations you can use Kraken to force yourself into areas that would usually be very hard to reach. The special doesn't have that long a duration, lasting only 5 seconds, so you really only have a bit of time to make something happen. And yes, it has a one-shot, which might seem a bit ridiculous, but jumping as a Kraken is pretty committal, and like I said, you only have a short amount of duration. So if invincibility and instant activation didn't exist, I think this would actually be fine. Last thing is that the special has a knockback, which a lot of people might use to justify that the special is fair, and yeah, no. I mean, admittedly, for some weapons like Octobrush and N-Zap, you can Kraken tame. But for most weapons in the game, it's not really an option, and dodging Kraken depends heavily on having map control in your area and waiting out the Kraken. Which leads to the one final thing about Kraken. When it runs out, it has a good bit of end lag that you can use to punish it before they can perform any action, which is really good and a legitimate way to counterplay the special. So Kraken does have some cool attributes about it, mainly the climbing up any wall regardless of if it's inked, which is really nice for getting into new areas, but ultimately instant activation, invincibility, very little counterplay, and a one-shot are just way too many drastic things about it. I wouldn't say it's worse than Stingray's special design. You'll have to check out my video on that for why it's so awful, but it's still definitely pretty close. So Kraken's a pretty poorly designed instant activation invincibility. Considering Bubbler is also an instant activation invincibility, this must mean I don't like it either. But nope, I actually really like Bubbler. Now yes, like Kraken, instant activation invincibility is still a problem, but literally everything else about Bubbler is amazing. First of all, the special only lasts 4.5 seconds compared to Ink Armor's 6 seconds, which means it's a lot easier to wait it out if a push is rather predictable, and you really have to be fast to make a play with that Bubbler. And chaining to teammates actually decreases the duration very slightly, so there's even a downside to that. But that brings me to my biggest point. Rather than armor being some BS chaining to everyone, chaining a bubbler to someone requires a teammate or yourself with bubbler touching someone else. Which means if you send a T-Tech flanking halfway across the stage, they're not getting that bubbler. And if you want all 4 players to be invincible, they all have to be coming from the same place. This means that the special is not only about timing, but also about positioning and being aware of where your team is, which adds a ton more depth to the person using bubbler, which makes it way more fun and better designed than armor ever was. Like, to put this into perspective, I think it would be genuinely easier and better to rework bubbler for Splatoon 3 than it would be for armor. Not that we're going to see it because Big Bubbler is a special that exists now. Maybe for the better, HP specials are kind of problematic when they change your whole team. But yeah, kind of sad because bubbler is pretty well designed. Just 2 things, instant activation and invincibility, were a little too drastic. So with that all being said, we have gone over every Splatoon 1 special. I rated Splatoon 2's overall special design a 7 out of 10, and I will be rating Splatoon 1's a 7 out of 10. Yes, again, let me explain. So first off, let me get the disclaimer out of the way about special spam. Splatoon 1 did not have prevalent special spam, and Splatoon 2 did. But that has nothing to do with the specials themselves. If you threw Splatoon 1 specials into Splatoon 2, they would be spammed even more. And if you threw Splatoon 2 specials into Splatoon 1, they would be spammed even less. Special spam is a result of many other factors in the game itself that I've gone over in this video. It is not a factor of the specials themselves. So special spam did not factor into this rating. With that out of the way, both of these games have their strengths. Splatoon 1 specials are a lot more individually empowering and, well, overpowered, so they feel a bit better to use, and when you do counterplay them, they feel pretty good. That being said, they're really broken, so playing against them does not feel good whatsoever. Splatoon 2 isn't much better in the countering compartment. Counterplay to most of the specials in the second game isn't very good. Both games have their fair share of really bad special design. Splatoon 2 has a few more bad specials, but also a few more good specials. It's just a factor of Splatoon 2 having more specials than 1. And while we're talking about that, Splatoon 2 has a much wider variety of specials, so it's a lot easier to find one you like in the second game than the first. I don't think either game nailed specials perfectly. Splatoon 1 did things differently than 2, and depending on what you like, you're gonna like one game's better than the other. But at the end of the day, I want to recognize that both games did some things right and some things wrong. So here's hoping Splatoon 3 capitalizes on the best of both and improves on special design for the sequel. But until Splatoon 3 comes out, we've covered every special there is, so I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in a future video.